Good afternoon, everybody, and many thanks for joining the next in the series of WeAreVirtual. So the webinar is kindly hosted by We Are the City, and I'm delighted to be running this one today. As you're probably aware, especially if you've been on others, there is an hour allocated for this today. So we have up to an hour. So I am going to give you some content, and hopefully lots of value today, and there'll be opportunity for you to ask questions as well. Because we have got so many people on this call, I'm really sorry if you've had this on others in terms of asking questions verbally, but I think that's a bit challenging to do in the time today because we could get a clash of too many people wanting to speak at once. So I think you are all muted. Please do, though, use the Q&A function on the panel to ask any questions you've got. I will try and check in to see if there are questions periodically throughout, although I realise that can be disjointed. So if I don't answer your question during, I will get to it at the end. And if there are questions I can't answer on the webinar, I will connect with you afterwards and I can respond to those. If you've got any problems at any point with sound or anything else visual, please do put that in the chat, and we'll probably use the chat for some other conversations as well. But I hope you get a lot from today. Please do make notes if you would like. Also at the end, I'm going to offer you quite a comprehensive email series and document that covers what I talk about today and more. So feel free to take notes, but there will be the opportunity to request that at the end as well. So a bit of background on me for those of you who may not know me. If you're on social media a lot, you may have seen me pop up. But for those that don't know me, I'm Joanna Gaudoin. I run Inside Out Image, and I work with mainly people in professional and financial services, not exclusively, but a lot of my clients are there, on personal impact and their relationship management skills. So what on earth does that mean? That means how they come across to and engage with other people and deal with other people and manage those relationships, build those relationships in different professional scenarios. So for instance, managing office politics, networking skills, running meetings effectively, having impact in meetings, any professional scenario you can imagine, I work with people on those skills because fundamentally, as you're going to see, we need more than the technical skills and knowledge that we all have. So I work with clients one-to-one, quite a strong private practice, and then work with clients through their companies as well, in a group and one-to-one context. And then I speak at events as well. And you may have seen me out and about when we were allowed to be out and about, speaking on different topics at different events. So today, what we're going to look at first is why more than technical skills and knowledge is required for career success. Because fundamentally, if you don't believe that's the case, you're probably not going to bother to work on any of these other skills. So that's the first job I need to do. And the second one is to look at the key necessary skills that you need and how these relate to different professional scenarios. And there are going to be 9 of those that I'm going to walk you through today and give you a bit of context as to why I think they matter and some things to think about. But as I said, you can request more information from me at the end. We're going to have some polls as well, so I'd really appreciate your engagement in those. They're totally anonymous, so whatever you answer to those won't be attributable to you. Okay? So we're going to start with a poll. And this one is one answer only, so not you can't select multiple. And the question is all about why you joined today. So I'd really appreciate it if you can let me know why you did join. So is it that you've got extra time at the moment and you really want to focus on your development? You think jobs will be at a premium when we get to whatever new normal is going to be like and want to put yourself in the best possible position? Thirdly, you were going for a promotion or job move anyway, so you want to keep up this development even if that's not progressing right now. Although, encouragingly, I have heard of quite a few people being offered new roles and promotions, so that's really good to hear at this time. And any other reason that you might or might not want to contribute in the chat. So just take a few minutes to vote on that. That would be great. A good comment from someone in the chat there, protecting yourself, you're in between roles. Absolutely. This is a great time. I know we're all in different scenarios at home. I don't have young children. If you do hear them in the background, they're not mine. I know lots of people do have them, and that takes up time, and there's less time for development, and it's really challenging to balance your job and children. But certainly if you're not in that situation, or you are between roles, it's a great opportunity to really be thinking about what are your development needs and how can you work on those right now. Someone else saying they're mixed with all the options. That's fair enough. Lorna saying jack of all trades, and my career to date not been an obvious clear cut path. So I guess you're thinking about what else can you specialise in there. Risk of redundancy, confidence to get back on the market. I think that's a very good reason. Which jobs are safe right now? I don't think we really know the answer to that until all of this nets out. There's a bit more normal, and we can see what's going to be happening. But having talked to somebody in L&D yesterday, in the legal sector, there's definitely a lot of preparation going on for thinking about who do we really need in the future, how do we reduce our costs. Someone saying the market's tricky. Yes, indeed. Seeing yourself as a business, keeping up to date with the trend and environment. Yes, definitely. We've got to show we're moving with it. I know I've had to. All my clients have obviously moved virtually, whereas usually I'm out seeing clients individually. I'm running training sessions. Personally, what I much prefer seeing people in person, but it's moving online and now looking at which training is going to be relevant for both firms and individuals going forward with working at home. Very good point someone's made about automation here. We're going to come on to that in a little while. So really, thank you for mentioning that, Sonia, because that tees up something I'm going to say later on. So thank you for your contributions and your votes. I can see the majority have now voted. So I'm going to end that polling and I'll share it with you so you can see. So it's very close run. So 37% of you saying jobs will be at a premium, put yourself in the best possible position. So I think that's really good, thinking ahead. It'd be very easy right now just to bury down, think, right, I'm at home, I just got to get on my job, coping, surviving, obviously staying healthy. Those are all really important things. But if you can be thinking about how can you put yourself in a good position, that's worthwhile doing. But followed by people that have more time. And I think some people definitely do have more time. If your work's dropped off a bit, but you are still working, you've not got a commute and you don't have homeschooling to do, then definitely there's an opportunity there. And then people still looking at job moves and promotions and some other. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to just try and stop sharing that if I can. There we go. It should disappear from your screen now. I'm just going to, there are a couple of chats coming up, so I'm just going to check those before we move on. So what else have we got? Starting work in a new industry, yes, and thinking about what skills are going to be necessary for that. Job promotion, job move, thinking about your relationships there, building on that. Soft skills to deal with office politics, colleagues and friends, yes, very, very helpful if you can develop those skills. If you read any of my stuff, you will see me say how pivotal I believe those skills are. I guess you'd expect me to say that though. Trying to make a career change for a while, thank you, Emma. Using your furlough time, very good. LinkedIn, I think engagement has rocketed there. But whilst there are more people there, you've got to think more about putting out quality and interacting in a really positive way and thinking about your interactions there. Transferable skills, not necessarily technical skills, not finding these are actually a priority for employers. I'm not quite sure which way round you mean, Emma, but you can always pick up with me afterwards if you want to talk about that. And thanks, Faith, for saying that professionals need this. I think so, but I'm biased. So let's crack on and think about why more than technical skills and knowledge is required. And if you think about it, from the minute we're at school, it is all about what we know. Passing exams, it's about our knowledge, isn't it? And even getting first jobs, it's about our knowledge versus other people. But actually, when you get to middle and senior levels, broader skill sets are required. Now, it's not to say that technical knowledge expertise isn't still required, it is, but there's an expectation that it's there, and it's thinking about what other skills do you have. So to manage people, to manage clients, to bring in business, the business development, to work with other key stakeholders in the business. There are lots of other things we need to do. And actually, a good way to summarize that is that the day job changes as we come more into middle and senior management. And often people aren't prepared for that. They haven't had the development they need to do those things. And that's very much what I help people do. And those that combine excellent people skills with their great technical skills and knowledge are those that will perform best at work, get recognized for that, and move forward. I just want you to have a think about this for yourself for a minute. So I don't know if any of you, before all this lockdown stuff, had bought a property recently or sold one. But if you think about the solicitor you used for that transaction, or whenever you last did that, think about, why did you use the one you did? Was it because they were a good lawyer? You'd heard that from a friend. Was it the price was cheaper than someone else? It could be either of those two things. They are very valid considerations. But actually, very often, people take a recommendation from a friend. This lawyer was good. They were communicative. They updated me. They were proactive. I didn't have to chase them all the time. So often it's about more than just that technical knowledge and price. We're selecting on other criteria. And that is the case for B2B and B2C. It actually doesn't make any difference. It applies in both scenarios. What was very interesting, and I wish I'd taken it off LinkedIn when I saw it, one of my contacts had gone to a presentation, and in that presentation they'd looked at what solicitors thought clients looked for in a solicitor, and then they asked clients what they looked for in a solicitor. And surprise, surprise, the answers were very, very different. So the solicitors are all about their knowledge, their technical ability. You know, I know loads about leases, I know this, that, and the other. But a lot of what the client said, in fact, everything except 1 point, so I think it was 4 points out of 5, was very much about how that solicitor dealt with them and managed their case. And you think about the impact that has. If someone's done a good job for you in that way, you're more likely to talk about them. So people skills, very, very key, even in sectors where, of course, technical knowledge is important and absolutely essential. Now, I've got a nice picture of a bridge here because, of course, we need technical knowledge and ability if we're going to build something like a bridge. And in fact, as early as the first half of the 20th century, there was some research done into 2 engineering companies. And this case study was featured in a book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know if you've read it. It's well worth reading. It's better than it sounds. He's long dead, but his institute, delivering training on the sorts of things I deliver training on, lives on. So he developed a very strong brand. But this case study compared these 2 engineering companies, and one of them had increased profit and revenue over the other. If you take out all the other factors, they were doing better on the key financial measures. And when they looked into why this company was doing better, just 15% of that increased revenue and profit was due to increased technical knowledge. The majority, 85%, was about how they interacted with their clients, how they dealt with people internally, how they worked with one another. So I think that really shows, as early as I think it was the 1920s or 30s, that people skills really do matter and make a difference. And that's because people do expect you to have the technical skills and knowledge, particularly if you work in a company that's very well known for what it does. So the big question is, what else can you offer? What else can you be offering your employer in terms of your skill set? And cumulatively, how does that build to what else you can offer the market? And this is because, of course, we are not, when we go to work, even at the moment we're all working at home, we are not on an island with no contact with people. Day to day, pretty much everybody, no matter their role, has to interact with somebody, whether that's clients, prospective clients, or whether that's just colleagues, internal clients, and other business contacts. So we need to think about those people we're interacting with. If you look at the diagram on the right there and think about yourself in the middle, who else comes out from you? Who do you need to be interacting with day to day? Where do those relationships really matter? Which ones do you need to work on? I am doing some work with a corporate client at the moment, and every month I see 6 of their people, and we're working on a range of challenges, topic areas. And one of the people, I said to her, have a think about what are your most challenging relationships at work, and that could be in relation to clients or internally or other people. Then let's prioritize which ones need most work, and then let's look at what we need to be doing there. Where do we most need to focus? A key reality is that emotional intelligence is actually responsible for 58% of your job performance. So we like to think it's about what we know, but actually it's how else do we interact with people? It's really about the how. So this research came from Travis Bradbury and Jean Greaves a little while ago. So where we can really focus on thinking about how we react to people, how we interact with people, how we deal with them and their challenges, that's where the real benefit is. If we can work on those skills, and I've probably seen this happen with multiple clients, that's where we can really improve our likelihood of career success and our recognition at work. But of course, there's skills that often don't come so naturally. This is a big generalization, but lots of the people that are very technical, very bright, very knowledgeable, this is often an area that's not such a natural skill set. So it does take work, but it's entirely improvable. That's probably not a word, but that's how I'd like to describe it. So these are very much skills that if you understand what you need to work on, identify that and focus on it and practice, you can improve. And this is where I said I was pleased to hear the point earlier. Even without all the challenges we've got with COVID, the machines are coming, and artificial intelligence is a very real threat to many roles. I've already heard about, I've mentioned legal previously, but quite a few roles in legal that have gone over to computers. So where there's simple document checking, contract checking, that can be replicated or by a computer. So the key is to think about what are the skills that are hard to replicate with a computer. Where can you stand out? Where can you be different? And the obvious answer to that is, of course, in relation to people, because a computer is never going to be able to engage as effectively with a person with the same energy and warmth and I suppose tailored response that we can as individuals. So really thinking about how can you improve those skills will help you stay ahead of the game. Interestingly, with these skills that we're talking about here, the softer stuff, I don't like the word soft skills because I think it implies they're unimportant and they're easy. And actually they're not. They're very important, and they often take more work to work on, because it's not like learning how to use Excel or another very technical process task. They need practicing. They're about behavior change. So employers think they're very important in this country, but actually a lot of employers, you can see 75% there, believe that their employees actually lack these skills. Conversely, companies often aren't very good at investing in these skills. They often go to the bottom of the list, but they are absolutely pivotal for the reasons that I've talked about. As I alluded to a minute ago, I of course firmly believe people can work on these skills and improve them. I've seen it happen many, many times, both in a group and individual context. But there are 3 key steps to this process. And the first one is about being aware of where am I, what do I need to work on, how good am I at relative skills at the moment? And I'm going to ask you a bit about that later on. Secondly, understanding what does good look like with those skills? What's the gap between where I am now and where I want to be? So learning about that topic, that area, and then practicing it. Now, when I go in and run group training, there's obviously limited practice I can do, but when I work with clients one-to-one, fundamentally what I get them to do is after each session, go away with a load of actions to go and try and come back and tell me how it went, and then keep practicing those, keep putting the ones that are working well back into play, because that is the only way that people are going to get an improvement. The fundamental challenge, we've got a nice pink lemon for those of you that are on the phone rather than watching the visuals. There's a pink lemon amongst a load of normal coloured lemons here. And fundamentally, this illustrates that we need to stand out. How do we stand out positively in our career as an individual? And how does our organisation stand out well in its sector? And it's only going to stand out positively by how its people operate and engage with people. There's something worth mentioning here that I haven't put a slide in on, but it's something I talk about in a lot of different sessions, is according to a theory from the 1990s that looks at career success, and if some of you read my blog posts, you will have seen me mention this. It's called Pi theory, and this looks at what drives that success. The P is for performance, I is for image, and E is for exposure. Anyone want to hazard a guess in the chat which of those is most important for career success and by what percentage it accounts for in that success? So any willing contributions in the chat. If you don't want everyone else to see, you can put it just to me if you want, if you don't want people to see your guesses. So we've got someone saying exposure 50%, exposure 60%. Someone who I know would have read some of my blog posts, so they've got a head start. Exposure 80%. You're all saying exposure, so maybe you have all read what I've written. Imagination, so that I think you probably mean image. So yes, it is exposure. Exposure accounts for 60%. Now at first you think, really? Why does it account for that? But if you think about the scenario where you are being put forward for a promotion to, say, a panel of senior managers, those people's first thought will be, do I know this person? So that's the exposure piece, because they are going to assume that if somebody is putting you forward for a promotion, perhaps your line manager, that you're probably actually good at your job because they're putting their neck on the line to put you forward. So actually the performance is assumed. That's why it only accounts for 10%. So the exposure 60, which leaves 30 for the image. And that's because once they've thought about, oh yes, I know that name, I've heard about it in the context of, they start thinking about what they know about you. Is it good or bad? Have they experienced you in a meeting? Have they heard you talked about because you brought in some new business? Whatever might relate to that. They've heard that you've really developed your team and brought some people on, you know, whatever that might account for. So really worth thinking about who knows you in your career and what do they think of you. As much as we don't like to think about people judging us, it is a reality that people do form a perception of us. So that is a really key thing to think about. And of course, the fundamental building blocks of any relationship really is know, like, and trust. So of course, you have to be known for people to have a relationship with you. That's obvious. And so how are you getting yourself known? You know, your team, they obviously know you, but how do people know you around the business? How are you building your exposure? And externally as well, are you well known in your sector? Would people know to refer clients to you? When you come to look for a new job, how well do people know you? Because often network's a very good place to find a new role. Secondly, how likable are you? How well do you get on with people? And this doesn't mean just people pleasing, doing whatever they say, but how do you build connection and rapport with people so that you're, again, positively memorable? And the last one is trust. And trust for me has a split. There's personal trust that comes with likability. So if somebody likes you, they're more likely to personally trust you as well. And then there's professional trust. And for some people, that comes with likability as well, but not for everyone. Professional trust is about, are you seen to be a good expert in what you say you're an expert in? Does someone look at you and think, yes, I think he or she would do that well, I would trust them? Some people need to experience your work before they fully professionally trust you. Other people will just refer people to you, etc. So I referred a client of mine to somebody the other day in quite a specialist area. I had never worked with that person, so I made that very clear to my client, but I said I'd heard good things about her. I'd seen her at networking events, and I'd heard other people talk about the great work she'd done. So on that basis, I felt willing to refer her. But people often will be cautious about doing that unless they really feel they trust you there. Someone's made the comment, isn't it also about trusting people is true to him or herself? That is a good point. I think if someone is not being genuine and as authentic to themselves as they can be within the context, that's going to come across. It's not going to be congruent, and therefore that won't help to build up trust. So you're absolutely right. There's a trust equation. This is not mine, but it comes from a book called The Trusted Advisor, and I think it's worth considering. So this looks at trustworthiness is a combination of credibility. So credibility, you can be formed pretty quickly, actually. If people meet you, say at a networking event, not possible right now, have to be online, and you come across well, and again, they feel you're an expert, what you say you're an expert at, then that builds credibility. Reliability, I think that does take more time because people need to see that you deliver on what you say you'll do. So whether that's attending a meeting, sending them a document, meeting them for that coffee, whatever that might be. Intimacy is connectedness, so showing interest in the other person, engaging with them, really trying to build that rapport. And those three things are all massively undermined if we're just thinking about ourselves. So we've all seen the person at networking that when we start talking to them and we tell them what we do, where we work, and you can immediately see they're not interested, and they're looking for somewhere else to go, someone else to talk to. They're just focused on what they can get out of that event. They're not interested in actually engaging with anyone else. And I could talk to you for half a day about networking skills, but that's just a small point there. There's the time factor as well. So there's the initial, of course, first impression that we make with people, and we all know how important that is. It's very quick. It's especially important when we're in a situation where we've got one chance, so to speak. So if you get talking to someone for the first time at networking, you don't want them writing you off. So that's one instance. Another instance would be a job interview. So if you mess that up, someone's not going to probably give you another chance unless there's a very good reason to do that. So it's thinking about that initial impression you make, that initial impact. But then there's over time, how do you continue to build on hopefully the positive first impression you made and build your credibility continually? So there's those two important time factors to consider. It's often not enough to make a good first impression and then that's it. That's why I say after you've been to networking events, you need to strategically plan which relationships you're going to continue and stay in touch with those people, particularly if you're in business development. They will forget about you if you don't continue that relationship. And then when they have a need for what you offer, they potentially go and look for someone else. They don't come to you and your business that you're in, your company. So really important to think about that time factor there. And with who, well, I've alluded to it already, but of course with clients, prospective clients, colleagues, and that includes senior colleagues as well as junior colleagues and your peers, as well as other professional contacts. So how are you thought of in your market would be my question. What would people say about you if they were talking to others in your network? And really thinking quite carefully. This isn't a session on personal brand, but if it was, we'd be looking at how you define your personal brand and how you make that come to life. So really thinking about what you want to come across about you. So I have two participants have raised their hand. I can't actually see how I engage with you very easily. But if you want, can you please put your message in the chat, the two people that have done that? Just help me because there's a very big list and it'll take me a minute or so to scroll down. So if you could kindly put your message in the chat, you can either put that to just me or to everybody else. That'll be fine. Okay. I know at the beginning, Chantal and Ellie were saying it's easy to accidentally raise your hand, so that can happen too. So here's our second poll now, and I'd really like to understand what skills you spend most time developing now. Okay, so there are several options. There's just your technical and hard skills, soft skills, neither of them, you're not doing any development. And when I say development, I mean just yourself or through your organisation, or both. So let's see what the mix is there. So we've got quite a few of you, so I'll just give you a few minutes to think about that, and I shall just check the chat whilst doing that. If you're struggling to see the poll, it could be because you're on phone. Zoom doesn't always bring it up, so feel free to add that into the chat. So someone's done that, saying technical or hard skills. But otherwise it should have come up in the middle of the screen for you all, I hope. So any more votes? 78% of you have voted so far. Interesting, really interesting question, Christine. So if I can encourage you to put questions in the Q&A, so I make sure I answer them properly, but of course I'll answer the ones that are here. How do you deal with the fact that younger professionals don't want to interact with older professionals, whether in interviews for potential jobs or at work? That's interesting. I haven't heard quite that extreme before. That is quite a challenging one. They obviously don't realise how important that is. I'm guessing you're senior to them as well. I think I probably need to understand a bit more specifically what sector you're in and what's going on there, Christine. So at the end, I'm going to give my email address. If you want to drop me a line, and either we can discuss that over email or we can arrange a quick call as well. I'm sorry you can't see it, Lorraine. It should be in the middle to be able to vote. Someone else saying, I've got a positive image of our senior leaders, gained in under a year. Well done, good work. I'm worried about losing that. Also wondering what you can do to progress given that goodwill. Again, a very specific question from you, Sonia. That I do work with people on very specific plans, building a plan of what their objectives are, who are the individuals that could help them with that, and then a plan specifically for each relationship there. So I think we might need to discuss that in more detail, because I agree, if you've done all that work, you don't want to lose it, but it's the specifics of who those people are, what objectives they can help you with, and how you go about it. But very good that you've achieved that. I'd be very interested to know how you've achieved that. Amanda, early on in your career, so working on knowledge building the most and at risk of redundancy, please do work on those other skills as well. I know, particularly when you're more junior, you think, well, I just need to know as much as everybody else. But actually, how you engage with people and communicate can take you a long way. I'm not saying you shouldn't have content and knowledge, but working on those other skills is really important. Again, happy to pick up with you and talk specifically. Oh, someone giving a helpful comment that the poll doesn't always appear if you're running from the browser. Tip to stay connected and remain in people's minds whilst working from home. And studies saying, excuse me, less opportunities for promotion working from home. This is a challenge because what we've lost by working at home is bumping into people, whether that be coffee machine or in and out of meetings. You don't have one-to-one conversations typically at the start and end of meetings unless you're particularly early or you stay on afterwards. So you're right, that opportunity is diminished at the moment, and that's why I hope we don't all move to working at home all the time, because there is a lot that's lost by that. I would say this is a very quick answer. Again, happy to talk to you more about this, but you have to be quite purposeful about who you're going to engage with. So arranging virtual coffees where that's possible. So people you used to go and meet up for coffee with, senior people at work, can you arrange a brief conversation? And working out what's going to be best for that person. Are they someone you can just give them a call and see if they're around and they're happy for that, or you need to arrange something? Are there ways you can interact through your intranet, your company intranet? Are they someone that's present on LinkedIn? So although they're an internal person, it would be good for them to see you interacting there and representing your joint company well. So there's a few ideas. Happy to talk to you again if you want some more. More about the browser. Yeah, Christine, just drop me a line with my email address later and we'll sort that out. These questions are in the chat, so that's why you can't see them. Please do put future questions in the Q&A. I promise you'll still get answers, but it's just a bit easier to manage. Someone else saying they find that older professionals don't always want to listen or engage. Yeah, I can completely see there's that too. And there's a lot of work that goes on to help intergenerational working because fundamentally generations clearly have very different understandings of what the workplace looks like. You think about, I wouldn't call myself, I'd call myself a mid-generation, I suppose, but the change I've seen in working life in the last just short of 20 years is quite incredible. So imagine those people that are probably 10 to 20 years older than me. There's going to be a mismatch of understanding. A middle career professional with imposter syndrome. Yes, imposter syndrome is a big issue for sure. Very happy to talk to you about that because I think that's a long one to answer at this point, and I'd want to understand a bit more where that was coming from, what that was related to. And yes, I can completely understand that you often get women in their around 30s, 40s that feel imposter syndrome with a lot of men around in there, even if they're younger. Emma, yes, please, can you drop that question to me into an email at the end and I will help you. You've said, can I help you afterwards? So I'm very happy to do that. Okay, and that I won't try and answer that now. And you've said you'd like an individual response, so I will do that. So I think we should move on. Please do put any more questions in the Q&A. And I will come to them at the end. But as I say, I'm very happy to those of you that have got a specific challenge and are keen. I can't talk to 200 people individually, probably, but if you've got a real challenge and I can help you, I will. And particularly if you're thinking this is something you need to resolve. So let me share the polling results with you. Hopefully you can see those now, but for those that can't, 36% of you have said technical hard skills you're just focusing on, 25% just soft skills, so that's good. I'm pleased to see that. Neither, 3%, so that's fairly low, but those of you that are saying neither, please do think about which skills gaps you need to plug, and both 37%, so that's pretty good. I guess I am preaching to the converted because you've bothered to join a webinar today, but I'm really pleased to see those results, so thank you for sharing that, and please do continue to add into the Q&A. Now we're going to get into what these actual skills are, and I have defined 9 of them. It's not to say this is absolutely exhaustive, but these are the 9 that I think are often very neglected by people. Okay, so what I'm going to do is walk you through these 9 and talk a bit about why each one is important, and just a bit of context for that and a couple of tips. So as I say, afterwards you can request my short email series and an e-booklet that's got 1 page per skill, so it's full of more advice and guidance, and you'll be able to get that free of charge at the end. But just to give you a bit of an overview of these. So firstly, and really foundationally, is personal impact at the top left. So thinking about, how do I engage with other people? How do I communicate about myself? What would I like people to say about me? And what do they actually say and think about me? That is fundamental, because that is the basis of every interaction you have at work, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in an email, in a meeting, on a video call. You are making an impact on people, whether it's visually or just through your language or the sound of your voice. So thinking about that and those tools within personal impact of appearance, body language, voice and other behaviours is absolutely key. In the middle at the top is senior relationships. So I've talked quite a bit about this already, but how good you are at working on these, so that your boss is an obvious one, your line manager, if you're in a matrix organization, the people who are managing your project, etc. But who else needs to know you, and do you need to know, and making time for that. It's very, very frequent I hear people just haven't bothered, and then that's really challenging. Top right, office politics. It is in pretty much every organization where people have different values, assumptions, beliefs. it's there. So it's going to be everywhere. It's whether it's positive or negative. How do you navigate it? Unfortunately, if you just say, I want to go in and do the day job and not bother about the rest, that's fine, but you're probably unlikely to progress. You need to be able to navigate the informal channels that do occur. Naturally, they occur by human behaviour in organisations. An organisation doesn't create those informal channels, but they create the formal channels that often, because people don't like that, they work around them and have discussions at different times. And we do need to be able to navigate that because it's something we all contribute to creating. And very often we don't understand how we're coming across. So it's thinking about what impact are we having on other people. So really encourage you to think about that. I've written an awful lot on this topic. I've also worked with people in groups and individual clients, as there's a diagnostic I run where you understand which of the profiles you fit to and how that means you could be being perceived, and very specific skills to work on. So if that's something you're interested in, very happy to talk about that as well. Middle left is clients and prospects. Might not be relevant for everybody, but how good are you at building those relationships, at creating loyalty for your company, making sure you get referred? Because clients and prospects don't just pick on price. As we talked about earlier, they pick on other things, how they were dealt with. If they're thinking about renewing their contract, they're probably not going to move their contract away from you if they've had really great service and built a great relationship with you, because it's too painful. So thinking about what skills you need, particularly in this virtual environment, how are you still doing that really well? Because we don't have a lot of the tools we normally do. We can't take a client or prospect for a coffee. We can't go for a lunch. We can't see them at a networking event in person. So what are you doing there? In the middle is negative feedback. So when I say negative feedback, of course, I really mean constructive feedback. How do we react to that? Are we getting feedback that's useful for us? Making sure you get very specific feedback. I have clients come to me and say things like, oh, my boss says I need more presence. Well, that's great. You and I can think about what presence means. We can all get a nice definition of that. But what does your boss actually mean? If they're saying you need more presence and you need more presence to get a promotion, we need to know where they're not seeing the presence they want to see. What does that look like for them? It is only then we can work on that. So make sure you're getting good feedback, and good, I mean constructive, that you're able to discern what you need to work on, and then that you've got a plan to be able to work on it. Right hand side in the middle is managing a team. So very often people are promoted to manage others with absolutely no development given to them at all. And I was speaking to somebody just yesterday who's ended up in this position. The team has just grown, they've had no support, they're not getting much support from their line manager, they've been asking for help. Therefore, it's had a knock-on effect. They've not had good role modelling from their manager. They've been too busy and not had support, so they've not managed their team well, and that has led to numerous issues that I won't even go into, but very serious issues. So thinking about how are we equipping the people we want to manage teams to manage them well, because we want teams to be an asset, not a burden in the organisation. If people are a burden and aren't developed well, we're going to lose people. It's going to take time and money to recruit. We're not going to come across well to our clients, prospects, and other contacts. Bottom left is meeting effectiveness. So we all sit in lots of meetings, but how effective are they? Do we know actually what we want to achieve? Are the right people at the meeting? Do they know why they're there? Are we able to speak up as an individual at a meeting? And some people are finding that a lot harder now in virtual meetings because you can't use some of the signalling that you would use in a room. Included in that is a very important skill for professional development, which is presenting. How good are you at presenting information, whether that be formally up the front with PowerPoint or sitting in your chair in a meeting presenting information? Because fundamentally, if after that people don't know something different, believe something different, think something different, or act different, what's the point? So that's a really key skill to have, both internally with clients and also if you go out and represent your company in terms of doing seminars and what you offer for marketing. In the bottom, on the bottom at the in the middle is networking, and this is really key. You can't build a network when you need one, and there are lots of reasons for networking. I mentioned earlier, if you need a new role, if you've got business development responsibilities at work, even if you've not got them now, if you've got them in 5 years and you've built your network over time, that network helps you to bring in more business. I know a contact of mine, she'd worked very successfully in financial services for years, but actually never bothered to maintain her network and keep it up. When her role was no longer valid for her, let's say, she found it was very difficult to suddenly go out and find options for roles. She was very much reliant on the traditional model of recruiter and companies advertising directly. Whereas if you've got a great network, that's often a really good way to get a new role as an individual. So think about, do I need to be networking? What are my objectives? Where do I need to be networking? Again, could talk to you for half a day on networking skills. Lastly, new role. So linked to what I was just saying about networking, how new role ready are you? If an opportunity came up tomorrow, could you easily go for it? So many people are put off by going for new roles because they know they've got all their CV to do, their LinkedIn, and that just feels too much, so they don't bother. And that means they get stuck in roles for too long very often and don't take the opportunities that come to them. So really in this time is a good thing to be thinking, is my LinkedIn profile looking good? Does it represent me well? And I run sessions on that too. Does my CV do me justice? It's a lot easier to write up about your recent experience just after it's happened. Writing about something you did 3 years ago, that's going to be really hard to bring to life on either LinkedIn or your CV. So 9 key skills there that I think are really important, and hopefully you can see now why I think they're important. And I would really like to know in the final poll which you think you need to work on. So you can select multiple answers for this one, but think about those 9 skills and which of those you really think are important for you now. So I'll give you a little bit longer on this one because you can do multiple answers and you might need to have a think. So there are probably other skills as well, but I've just put my 9. I can see there's lots in the chat, a Q&A, and I will come to that in a couple of minutes when we finish off. Thank you. I can see half of you have voted, so other half of you, if you'd like to vote, remember it's anonymous. Just give you a few more seconds to do that. Intrigued what the average number of skills is you think you need to work on. But we haven't got a poll for that one. Okay, we're up to 72% have voted. Okay. I am going to close the poll in 10 seconds, so quickly vote if you would like to. Right, let's end polling. And I shall share the results with you. So, wow, 61% of you think you need to work on your networking skills. Probably, from my experience. Clearly more challenging now because it can only be virtual as well. So that's really interesting. The next one, having a quick flick down. Oh, actually 60% on personal impact. Yes, I'm not surprised at that because it's really foundational to all of these. If you think how you show up with senior people, with your colleagues, with your clients, when you receive negative feedback, how do you react to that? How do you present? It informs all the others. So not surprised that's high. Senior relationships is the next highest. And then we've got preparing for a new role on 40%. And then the others drop down from there. So politics, negative feedback and meetings and presenting. So really, really interesting. Thank you very much for contributing to that. So my question now is, what next for you? Which of these skills need work? So you've just put it into the poll. If we were meeting in person at this point, you would have a postcard on your chair from me, and I would ask you to commit to yourself on that postcard what you're actually going to do now. We don't have that, but I would like you to think about, how are you going to use what you've learned today? What are you going to go and work on? Because again, if you don't do anything, well, you've heard me talk for an hour, and that's kind of it. It's not giving you any value. So think about, are there other skills you need to work on that maybe weren't on my list? How do you prioritize them? How do you come up with a plan? Can you do it by yourself? Do you get online support? Do you get an expert to help you? What does that look like for you to actually do something about that? Fundamentally, I want you to help yourself progress your career and your organisation improve its performance, because of course if everybody works on developing themselves, that impacts the organisation. So now in a minute I'm going to flick to your questions. So I can see there are quite a few in there, so I will do my best to answer all of those. As I said to you, if you feel you haven't got a full enough answer from me, please email me. You'll see my email address is further down on here. 3 options now of further help. If you want the short email series and the e-booklet on these 9 skills, you can sign up there, and I will also, I'm going to come back to the chat in a minute, but I'm going to also post that link in the chat now. So if that's easier for you to go straight to it from there rather than trying to copy and paste it out of the presentation, just go on it, simply put in your details, and the first email will come straight to you. If you don't get it, you'll get an email to confirm you definitely want it first. Once you've got that, you should get the first email very soon. If neither of those turn up, please check your junk or spam and then move it to your inbox, and ideally add the sender address as a safe one so that you make sure you get the full set. I believe it's 5 emails from memory, and the e-booklet, and the e-booklet is downloadable, and that's totally for you to keep and refer to as you want to. So that's your first option. Your second option is, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love you to do that. Or I'd ask, please put a note that you're on this webinar, because I get loads of invitations all the time, and I've sort of changed my strategy on accepting them there. So even if it's just a brief one-liner, I was on the We Are the City a webinar, that would be great, so that I make sure I accept that. And then if you are ready to deal with a career challenge or development area, my email address is there, and before I work with anyone, or if people just want to have an initial conversation, we can do that, a 30-minute career booster call. Please do email me with some availability on when you'd like to do that. And also email me if you've got just a question you want answered by email, that's fine too. And do you know what? If you have a question now, that's great. But equally, if you have a question in 2 years' time, that's fine too. I very often have people come back to me and say, oh, I'm just thinking about what you said a couple of years ago, which always amazes me. But now I need to work on X. So don't worry if there's nothing now, but in 6 months you think about it, feel free to do that. So I'm going to end there. Thank you very much. I'll leave those on screen just for a minute so that you can see them. And take the action you need to, but do take action, and most importantly, stay healthy. Have a lovely afternoon, everyone. Thank you.